This is Viterbi Voices.
Coming to you from the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering.
We're here to give you the inside scoop about research, classes, student life, and so much more.
All of these shared from our students, faculty, and other members of our USC community.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Viterbi Voices. As usual, I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Paul and Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And hi, everyone. My name is Emily Powis, senior studying biomedical engineering.
And also joining us is Alex. Alex, so tell everybody about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex, and I am a senior studying industrial and systems engineering, and I'm also doing my PDP in engineering management starting this year. And I'm from Palos Verdes, California.
Awesome.
I know that's a fun one to announce, but it's kind of a recent decision. So
that was
kind
surprising.
of blasted out there.
Okay, so graduating with your bachelor's this year, because it's your senior year, is PDP keeping you for one more year?
Yes,
okay.
That's the plan.
Very cool. In engineering management.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's very, very exciting. And in addition to that, Alex, you also are bringing us this really cool episode. Can you tell everybody what this episode's all about?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to chat with two other engineering students, and we just kind of talked through our experience having internships this summer. One of us was completely in person, one of us was completely virtual, and then I was hybrid. So it was really nice to kind of get to hear all about engineering internships.
That's a great topic. I think so many times we get students that ask, hey, what happens during the summers, or like, where can I work, or how do internships work? So I think this is a great idea to talk to people about what has actually gone on, especially in this kind of weird time where we have like partial in person, sometimes all hybrid, or sometimes all virtual. It's kind of a weird world, but I think that what everyone should know is that even with all the weird stuff that happened, internships continued, sometimes virtual, sometimes in person, sometimes a mix, very similar to how everyone is working these days. And internships are always a big part of students' educational pathway here. So this would be great. Thank you, Alex. We'll talk on the back end of this. So everybody enjoy this conversation about internships this past summer.
Thank you both for being here with me today to talk about summer internships, which I feel like is a really hot topic that a lot of people are interested. So why don't we start with having you guys introduce yourselves? Let's do like name, major, year, hometown, just kind of the standard one.
Yeah, so my name is Natalie. I am a third year student studying civil engineering, emphasis in building science. I am from San Diego, California.
Nice.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Lepe. I'm a fourth year studying computer engineering and computer science from El Paso, Texas, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
Love that. Awesome. And I guess kind of this will affect the rest of the interview. So where did you guys intern, and kind of what department within the company did you work for?
Yeah, so I interned at Swinnerton Construction, which I would say like isn't super well known to the general public, but like one of the pretty big companies within like civil engineering. And the department thing is kind of a funky question because it was split down the middle of summer. So the first 6 weeks I was on a construction site where I was shadowing a project engineer. And this site was in Inglewood in Los Angeles. And then for the second half of the summer, I was actually in the downtown LA office where I worked on the estimating team for special projects, which just means like instead of like ground up buildings, it's renovations. So you take an existing building and then kind of just do improvements to it and do demo where you need and then improve it from there, as opposed to starting from nothing and then building upwards.
Yeah, so for me, last summer, I did an online internship with ARM, which is a microprocessor company in Austin, Texas. And then this past summer, I interned with Microsoft. So I was a software engineer intern with them, and I worked in their emerging technologies team, which sounds super amazing. And it's not what you think. It's still an amazing team. But I was part of the Azure division, and what I worked on was actually the Microsoft operating system. So I was in one of the couple kernel teams, and I worked on memory management and integrating some new aspects from like ARM64 architecture into the operating system.
That's awesome. This past summer, I also had an internship, and I was a supply chain operations intern for a company called Flexport. And so that was really interesting. I got to work with the network division. So I focused on transportation for LCL shipments and air shipments. So I really think it's interesting. We all did such different things, but they're all engineering internships. What were some of your favorite things that you did in the position you held this summer?
I thought it was really cool that I was given like an actual hard hat, safety vest, and was able to go onto a construction site. And it's actually like a big culture shock because like I feel like in general, people know the construction industry is very male heavy. And so going on site, I was the only female there. And so that was like insane. But then also just being like, as the time went on, I kind of knew more about what I was saying. Like I was able to do quality control. Like if I noticed like maybe piping was a little bit off by a foot, then I would have to like tell a subcontractor and let them know. So that was really cool that I was able to walk around, actually talk to all of these people who are very like well versed in their trade and just learn a lot from them, as well as trying to like give my 2 cents too. And I was put in charge of this waterproofing thing. Like waterproofing sounds super like small, but it's actually a big deal because without it, all the buildings would flood and stuff. So I was put on that project for like 2 or 3 weeks where I like literally was just in charge of making sure that all the waterproofing systems for like 2 entire buildings were installed correctly. And then I had to like write a report and then send it into our waterproofing consultant. And then if he didn't sign off on it, then we couldn't continue construction. So that was like really big responsibility. And I think that was like highlight of the summer because I felt like super cool and like accomplished about that after.
No, I really feel that kind of in a similar sense. One of the things that I worked on this summer was I was analyzing a process of this company, and I was basically helping totally scrap it and redesign it and just create an entire new team. And this is going to affect like how a whole section of the company works, which I thought was crazy, like being an intern and being able to help out and kind of just originally starting with not a whole lot of knowledge, especially how this specific company works, and then having to learn that. And then by the end of summer, be able to make all of these recommendations. And now like I'm leaving and having my recommendations kind of be how this company is going to operate from now on. So I think it's really cool, to get so much responsibility, especially as an intern. And I feel like that's not really something I experienced at previous internships. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I agree with both of you, to be honest. It was very daunting at first when I was told the first day that I was going to be working on the operating system, right? Because it's huge, it's in so many computers out there. And it was pretty amazing to see that happen. And around week 6, I actually had to create a new file on like the source code, which was great, right? So I wrote it, and then I was showing it to my mentor with some code changes and things like that. And then he told me, oh, you haven't changed the author name. Because I copied the base of the file from someone else, so it had the old author. He's like, no, you have to put your name on there, and then you have to put the date. And that was like amazing for me because I never thought this would happen. Of course, if you look
going
at the
down
code,
in history.
I know. Yeah, so it was pretty awesome because when you think about it, my name is actually not on every computer out there because only the code that's actually there gets compiled, not comments. But to have it there, and if anyone takes a look at the actual original code, it will be there for at least, 10, 15 years, unless everything changes drastically. So it's pretty amazing. And, like Windows 11 is coming up in a couple of months. It just got announced during the summer, and I was also able to be there inside the company while that happened. It was a great feeling of like, wow, my contributions are like extremely important. And if everything goes according to plan, my name will be out there somewhere, So that was pretty amazing.
I really hope that some of our listeners go on to work at Microsoft, and I really want to encourage them to look for your name, Paul Lepe, everyone.
If
an icon in a star.
F the code, if y'all control F my name, I guess you'll find me somewhere, hopefully. So yeah.
I love that. I really hope that's your like fun fact. I hope that like other students, they're like, wow, Paul did this work.
On that note of the names though, one day we were pouring concrete on site and I asked if I could write my name. in the concrete. And they said no, and that I'd probably like get in a lot of trouble. But I really wanted to. I was like, what if he's like in a corner that you guys like, no one's gonna look at it? They're like, no, you cannot put your name in our concrete. And I was like, fine, whatever. What's the point of this?
Honestly, that's so funny. Honestly, names have like a really, really big impact. And I feel like, especially as an intern, my project group that I was working with, we were doing a presentation, and it was like to the CEO, because it's a relatively small company. And so it was like to the CEO, and we were explaining stuff. And then like originally they didn't include my name because I was just the intern. I was kind of helping in the background. But then the manager like took the time to stop and be like, oh, and our intern Alex Rennie helped with this, and this was her idea. Just wanted to give her credit. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize how good it felt to have somebody say my name and just have that be so powerful. Like it was a pretty snazzy thing.
I know recognition is good, especially like I feel like a lot of people don't expect to get so much as an intern, but you do.
You don't, yeah.
You really?
But like, I feel like they treat interns differently than they used to in the past, you know, or at least as you start to get higher level internships, depending on like what grade you're in, you're given more impactful projects, and you can really see it, you know, how appreciative the team is after you finish and how it impacts the company. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I still keep in contact with my team members. It was really cool. I actually got to meet a lot of USC alum, which I'll probably touch on a little bit later, but you know, I still keep in contact with quite a few of them. Okay, well, I guess kind of jumping, like, you know, we've had this chance to kind of talk about the opportunities that we had, but also it happened in a time of a global pandemic. And so I kind of wanted to see, you know, how was that for you? Natalie, I know your internship was in person. Paul, yours was virtual, and mine was kind of a combination of the two. And so I kind of just wanted to talk about that and see how was that and how was navigating that for both of you?
Yeah, actually, it was very strange because I was kind of expecting that like dreadful phone call where it was like, no, you're actually gonna have to be remote, but that never came. So I actually had to get up at like 5 a.m. every day, get to the site by 6 a.m., walk around with like my mask on and like all the gear and everything. And like everyone was wearing masks, and it was really like, it was kind of a culture shock because like, yeah, I am at work, but we are still in a pandemic type thing. But it was super helpful being able to be in person because there's like no way you could do construction virtually, and like seeing things being built in front of you and being able to flip through like blueprints and look at plans like right in front of you is a lot more helpful than I think it would have been if I had to do it behind like a computer. But then like switching gears into working in the office, a lot of that work could be done on a computer because it was like estimating. So what we would do is like, we take square footages off of plans like on our laptop, and then we put unit prices to it and just kind of like estimate how much a project would cost before we started building it. So there were a couple of times where I was able to work remote from home and like get my work done. But I did notice that those days I kind of had less work to do and I didn't get to like communicate as much with my team. So having it in person was actually very helpful. And like going forth, I just kind of hope everyone gets to experience that like in-person thing. But I know like a lot of different internships, you don't need to be in person, but just like construction specifically, you kind of have to.
Makes a lot of sense.
With me, like I mentioned, I was a software engineer intern, so everything could be done on the computer and it's expected to be done from the computer. So I had a remote computer set up in the office for me, so I would just connect into it from home. And it was a little hard at the beginning, to be honest, because I was expecting that connection. You know, we all missed that for so long, for being remote so long in the pandemic. But one of the things I realized is that we're not the only ones seeking that connection. Everyone in my team by that point hadn't seen each other for almost 1.5 years. So my team had been doing lunch, like I'm blanking on the word, remote lunches, you know, through Teams twice a week. And that was pretty awesome to see because they would just get together and talk about anything. You know, someone would be cooking in the background, someone else would be talking about like their horrible weekend or their amazing plans. And it was a really good experience to be able to talk with other people that way and still create those connections. In addition to that, all the interns, there's over 4,000 US interns working at Microsoft over the summer. And we were all connected through one huge Teams channel, right? Everyone was there. And someone created daily lunch hours, but only like 15 of us would show up, 15, 20, and we would rotate. I started going like every other day just to like check it out. and we were the same people, and we got really close to each other. We created a Discord channel. We still talk right now. We still have like random game nights whenever one of us is bored, and it's pretty amazing, you know, being able to create those connections. I have a friend from the UK. I made a couple friends from Canada, all over the US, that I don't think would have happened if I was in Seattle. That's where I was supposed to be located. And actually, hopefully, one of my future roommates is going to be someone from that group that I made, because I'm moving to Seattle and after I graduate, because I'm starting full time with Microsoft. I got a return offer.
Yeah, you are.
Yes.
I
Paul.
became really good friends with one of them, and we're hopefully rooming together. That's the plan, you know. So even though it was remote, I
That's
was able to make
amazing.
some really great connections, which I'm pretty happy about.
No, I think really seconding that. My internship was actually supposed to be in Chicago this summer, but I did remote. And then we also have an office in LA. So I was able to, towards the end of summer, actually go visit and work out of the office and work out of our warehouse, because I worked for a freight forwarding company. Not sure if I mentioned that earlier. So we move a lot of cargo. But it was honestly kind of nice getting to work virtually, just because, like you said, you know, you get to meet people from all over the world. And I thought it was great. We only had 9 interns in our department, kind of working like with supply chain operations. And half of us were working in one side of the company and half of us were working on the other side. So they sent this like PowerPoint presentation of all the interns just kind of out to everyone in the company. It was like a company-wide announcement. They were like, oh, you know, say hi to the interns. And obviously, like, I had USC on my slide, and it was great. I had so many USC alumni reach out to me and just be like, oh my gosh, I also went to USC. Let me know if you need anything. And I was able to kind of do these virtual coffee chats, because I also feel like as an intern, you can really leverage like who you get to talk to in companies, because I feel like a lot of people are willing to, you know, just chat and, you know, tell you about their experience. At least that was the case where I worked. And so I met all these people, like all these managers and everything, and it was really great. And they were like, you're a Trojan, let's chat, because we have this connection. And so I thought that was really fun. And then we also did twice a week game nights to finish off the workday, just to kind of boost morale and get everyone together. And what was also really interesting is because it's the shipping industry really grew because of COVID in a way that I feel like some other industries didn't. And so a lot of the people I had been working with had never met each other in person, and they'd been working at the company for over a year. But because of COVID, they just hadn't met. And so that was really interesting, like finally getting to see them, get to meet everyone towards the end of summer when we all started going back into the office. But
yeah, on that same note, that kind of happened to me too, like with the USC alumni thing, because like the networking, the Trojan family, huge. Like in my division alone, so like special projects estimating, I think there were like 10 or 12 of us on that team, and like 4 of us were USC grads. Like that's already a third of the team that's already USC grads. And then like our operations manager is also USC grad, and he's like kind of pretty high up in the company too. So it was cool though that I'm like a little intern having inside jokes with like the ops manager, and I'm like, oh my God, I love this. But it's really cool too, because I knew them before I even interned there. They're kind of like, I guess, a connection I made, but through the school, because we have a club on campus called Construction Management Association of America. And all of these alum who work at like Swinnerton and another construction companies, Turner, they like come back and they coach for our teams and like help us go and compete in a competition every year. And then like through this, you just kind of make your like industry connections, and you're able to go all the networking events and the info sessions. And then when you do the actual interview, it's them. Like these are the people you've been contacting the entire year, are the ones interviewing you, who already know you, because through like USC organizations or just like being a USC student, USC grad, etc. So that's kind of how I got my internship too. And then like stepping in, you realize that like USC Trojans are everywhere.
Yeah. So I guess let's focus a little bit on that, is like how we got these opportunities. Maybe you guys can talk about some of the resources that USC and Viterbi specifically have to help you get these internships. Paul, I'm not sure if you use them to get yours, if you can speak on that maybe.
Yeah, of course. So for Microsoft specific, I actually didn't use any USC specific resources. I got referred by a friend when I was a sophomore, and then I got referred. I applied and I heard nothing from them my sophomore year. But then for the Microsoft one, in like March of my sophomore year, someone reached out and they're like, hey, do you want to do a pre-interview? And I had never heard of this. And I was like, it's March. And they were like, yeah, it's not for this summer, it's for like next summer. I was like, okay, I guess. And then I did a pre-interview and I completely forgot about it. And then the fall semester started when I was a junior, a third year. And then they reached out to me again in September and they were like, oh yeah, you were selected to jump to the last round interview. Do you still want to do it? And I was like, of course, I want to skip interviews. I want to skip, you know, and I was able to do that. And that's how I got mine. But that was from referral from a friend that was a USC student at the time. She already graduated. But in addition to that, I've gotten a good amount of offers from like the career fair that's on campus, you know, the Viterbi career fair that actually has more companies, I believe, than the general career fair, if I remember correctly. And it's just
I think
really
so.
great.
Don't we have like 120? I think it's something like 120 come to Viterbi's career fair.
Yeah, and then I remember like going up to a couple of them, and most of the people that come are USC alums. You know, they have the USC alum button. I always forget what it's called, but like they have it, and you go up to, and talk to them. And I remember actually making a connection with some of them about the class that I'm currently taking, or I was taking at the time, with about a professor. His name is Professor Puvada, because they had taken that class before as like master's students or upper division classes for undergraduate. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm taking this class. They're like, with Puvada? I was like, yeah, with Professor Puvada, he's amazing. And then it was like a great way to connect with them and, you know, move forward and be able to create those connections. And it was pretty great, to be honest. It was a great opportunity.
Yeah, I feel like there's always all those like little connections you can make with people that'll definitely like help you so much in the long run, and just kind of using the resources that USC has. I also got my internship through an organization. There was one of the people in the company I ended up working for reached out to professors he worked with in our professional society for industrial and systems engineers. And he just kind of emailed some of his professor friends and was like, hey, we're doing this internship program. We would love to have industrial engineers. And then the professor just email blasted us and I applied, and it was great. 3 of the 9 of us actually were from USC, which was pretty funny. And I was also told like over 300 people applied in the first 48 hours. And so it's pretty crazy how like these small, like just these small chances can happen, and you just kind of have to jump on it whenever you can. Paul, you said something that I kind of want to expand on. You were talking about how you were connecting about classes. Do you feel, do you, both of you, do you guys feel, or how has your classwork kind of tied into your internship? How do you think it helped prepare you? Was there like a small class that helped, or like maybe a big class?
Oh, with me, so if you're a computer science major, computer science or computer engineering, computer science, depending, I'm pretty sure you have to take this class. It's called CS 353. If you're interested, you can look it up online, find the syllabus, but it's CS 350, I'm sorry, CS 350, and it's Introduction to Operating Systems. And I'm so thankful I took that class the semester before my internship. So I took it spring semester that just happened, right? And then I finished that class, and that class is all about memory management, you know, scheduling processes, about a lot about the kernel, and like very nitty-gritty stuff about how a computer works, very close to the metal. And before that, I had never taken a class like that. And then I found out a week after I finished my class, you know, finished my final project, and I'm told that I'm going to be in this team that is all about the kernel, that is all about operating system. And they were talking to me about the project. And of course, I didn't understand everything involved, but I had a very good understanding of what was happening. And that really helped me personally a lot, because they were talking about like memory management, how memory is allocated, how it's distributed, all this stuff that you can learn on your own, but it's much easier to learn in a class. I'm very thankful I did. And it really helped me stay well versed in the project and help the project move along. Because if I didn't have that knowledge beforehand, I would have spent the first 6 weeks just getting a very minimal understanding of everything and not being able to code or to contribute much to the project. You know, of course, it's a hypothetical, but I'm pretty sure that's what would have happened. Yeah. So I'm very happy I did that. And while I was taking that class, I actually realized this is something that I really love doing. And I'm very happy about that. Awesome. And I was very happy that I got put in a team randomly, right? And that occurred. And now that I'm going back after I graduated, it's something that I know I would like to do. And I'm very excited about doing next year.
I'm excited for you. I can't wait to watch that. And honestly, come visit you in Seattle. It's gonna be a great time.
Paul is a superstar.
My house is open.
No, actually though. Love to hear it. Good. What about you, Natalie? How do you feel like your classes have helped kind of tie into your internship?
Yeah, so I would say it's more like my classes like created like a theory backbone. Like obviously in these classes, you're just learning more like on paper about how maybe like a stress applied to a beam, at what point will the beam start buckling, and at what points can you apply a load for like, if the beam to stay the most stable or stuff like that. But you're not going out there and you're not going to get a steel beam and you're not going to start applying forces to it, because that just obviously isn't feasible. So it's like that with the combination of like the clubs. So I already mentioned CMAA, but then I'm also part of like American Society of Civil Engineers, where we build a concrete canoe and we like weld a steel bridge. So it's like putting the theory from class hand in hand with physically building things from these like student organizations, both really complemented all the stuff I was able to do during my internship, because you have an idea of like what materials are going to be used and like what is important to consider. So before, if I hadn't taken these classes, I wouldn't even know like at certain points that you can't apply something, or just like in general, like what is going on, So like I was saying, like the classes offered a theoretical backbone to the actual physical building of it. So I'm not like learning how to install elevators in a class, but I'm learning about what is important to consider when you're installing anything, really. So that's kind of how the classes were able to complement my internship.
Super important. Yeah, I would say for me, I took this one class and it was human factors in work design. And I feel like it really kind of taught us how, humans just interact with any kind of work system. And that was kind of, part of what I was doing when I was analyzing this process. I was looking at how are people in the company interacting with this process and the system, and how can we streamline it and, take them into consideration. And so it was really cool I think I shared my lecture notes with one of my team leads that I was working with, because I was like, oh, like this, I think we should consider this because of this. And it was like very nerdy and dorky, but it was really, I don't know, satisfying and gratifying to have my school work be able to help this internship, and also kind of hand in hand. I feel like this internship has actually set me up for some of my classes this semester. I'm taking a project management course, and because I was on a team and got to see, our team lead go from pretty much start to finish, and just kind of see how she organized things, and like, learned what I felt was effective, and then what I felt like as a follower could have been more clear. I feel like that'll really help set me up for success as well. So I feel like it's also just kind of knowing the little things in classes that'll, help you in the long run, like even working with teams on a group project. Like I feel like all of those little things can help in the real world.
Yeah, communication helps with every industry, no matter what you're doing. You got to be good at talking.
Yeah, I think for anyone listening right now, we talked about all the technical stuff, right? But also when you come to campus, or any campus that you go to, join other social clubs or like other social activities outside of just engineering, because I met some interns that were not able to have an actual conversation with each other. And I was like, I just want to have fun with you. I want to converge. I want to talk about the weekend. And they couldn't do that, and I was like,
it's hard. And I feel like hard. That also helps you with interviews and networking, which is kind of a perfect segue to my next question, is just because I feel, like obviously this entire time we've kind of been talking about the internship, like we kind of briefly touched on, how we all receive these internships, but also in that process, you're probably interviewing with a few companies, you're sending out applications and resumes, and it's a lot. But just kind of a fun question, what is the weirdest thing you've been asked like during an interview where you felt was kind of just, totally out of pocket, not related? Or, what's an interesting network experience that you've had, and maybe where have these, softer communication skills helped you in those situations? It's kind of a loaded question, I know.
I can start this one. I have a good story about this. So I'm currently in the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, we're called SHIP. I'm the president of the USC chapter, but we have this really cool event during the fall semester. There's like a big involvement week where a lot of companies come in. The career fair happens, so the companies do a lot of events with organizations around campus. And SHIP started this cool event 3 years ago now, where it's Salsa Night with Intel, where we have really great connections with the Intel recruiter. Yes, and he brings the managers and other engineers in with us. And then we bring someone from the salsa team because there's a salsa team at USC and some of them are part of SHIP. And then they just teach us salsa moves. So this is not chips and salsa. This is like the dance, just to clarify that. So for an hour, hour and a half, we're just dancing and our partners are sometimes, a manager or an engineer or even the main recruiter himself. His name is Michael. And I've had that event happen twice. And it's pretty interesting because they don't know how to dance. Most of us don't know how to dance either. And it's a great experience. And right after that, the next day is usually the career fair. So you don't have to create an icebreaker when you go up to their booth because you're like, hey, nice dance moves last night, or like a random.
Did you bust out dancing? Did you go up to anyone and like start dancing?
No, I didn't.
It could have been a move.
But during that night, one of the managers was leaving and he didn't know where to get his Uber at. So I actually walked with him because he was like 8:30, 9 p.m. So I just walked with him to the place where he could get a lift. He ordered and then he left. And then the next day I saw him at an event and he was like, oh, hey, he didn't remember my name. And that's fine. We only talked for a little bit. But I was like, oh yeah, hey, how are you doing? And it was a very easy conversation to start. And in my mind, I was like, oh, we already befriended each other yesterday. It's going to be a good conversation, right? But this man, 30 seconds into the conversation, goes full manager mode. And then he immediately says, okay, so you want a job? And I was like, yes, I do. And then he did. And he just started interviewing me on the spot. And thankfully, I was prepared for it. So the questions kept coming and he was like, okay, talk to me about memory. What does Intel do? Talk to me about how an algorithm works. And all these very technical questions that thankfully I had an idea about. But the weirdest one he asked me, he was like, yeah, I love asking this question. I love asking like how many balls fit in this room. And it's always the random room that we're in. So how many balls fit here? And then I was like, I don't know. How big are the balls?
Do I one big one can fit in here?
You're just like one. You're just like one. Yeah. That would have been a funny answer.
And it was just like a weird question that he asked, but it was a great conversation. And at the end of it, a couple of weeks later, I did a formal interview for his team and I got an offer for them. And that was pretty awesome, to have that whole transition. But that's just my weirdest experience with a recruiter or a manager.
Also, I was going to say, you said this isn't chips and salsa, it's like salsa dancing. I was like, what if you called the event Chip and Salsa?
You know what?
Yes. I really think you should. Paul, you are the president. So that's also a plug, Paul. If you can't tell, I think I'm Paul's biggest fan. I'm like one of Paul's biggest fans.
But oh my God, I never thought of that. If y'all come in a couple of years, if you've seen an event called Chips and Salsa, Natalie came up with it. It's not my idea. But yeah.
This is going down in history.
But it'll still be your legacy. Great. I'm glad we could have this conversation. That's so funny. What about you, Natalie? Any fun experiences with a recruiter or just kind of like a fun interview moment?
Yeah. So I have like two parts to that. So the first one is like, I was a freshman. So this was 2 years ago. I joined the club that I keep mentioning, CMAA, because, same intern type business. And I was the only freshman that joined that year. And they have this giant networking event called Symposium. And when I say giant, I mean like giant. Like it has like 250 attendees, like a ton of companies come. They're all in construction, architecture, as well as like civil consulting. And it's a big deal. Like the companies will buy a table just to get an opportunity to talk to like 2 of USC students that are there. And then like we have speakers who come in, and the big stadium that just opened, SoFi Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the first time that stadium was being announced to the public was at this USC event. Like it had never been presented to any group of people before, but this event.
Wow.
So, I know, it was like so cool. And like I was 18 years old talking to these very seasoned professionals, just trying to make it seem like I knew what I was talking about, but they obviously knew I didn't know what I was talking about. It was like it was
fake it till you make it.
Yeah, no, it was very stressful, but I did get like 5 business cards that night, and they were just like, they knew I had no technical skills, but they were impressed with the fact that I was willing to be at that event so young, like just fully jumping in with nothing to back me up. Like I had no right to have the confidence I did walking into that. But then that kind of like then set me up for all the interviews that happened later on, because then I was able to take these business cards and be like, hey, do you remember me, little freshman who didn't know what she was talking about? Yeah, I want an intern now. Can you help me out? And I don't have any like super crazy like interview experiences or questions, but I do have one tip that has helped me a lot, is like, at the end when they're always like, do you have any questions for us? And then like maybe you ask a question, but then they ask it again. They're like, do you have more questions for us? And you feel like kind of stressed. You're like, should I have more? I always do this thing where I'm like, no, I don't, but do you have any questions for me? And then I just start listing like personal facts about me. I just go like, I love the color yellow. I have 3 dogs and I'm really obsessed with Twilight. And then they'll like
Twilight.
Yeah, I always have to mention that. But they will always take like one piece of like your fun fact, and then it'll just like create like a good moment of talking that has nothing to do with like the job or the internship or like being like professional. It's just, being conversational. So I always like turning it back on them. So then I get to talk about myself, but in a more like social fun way, as opposed to just like my technical skills, which we had already covered. So then if they get to know me as a person, then more likely they would like me and then want to hire me.
No, I love that. I actually did that at one of my recent interviews, and my interviewer, I had 2 interviewers, and one of them was like, wow, I've never had a candidate ask me that before. And then he was like, let's analyze your resume again. And then just like pulled up my resume in front of me and was like, and then I think he asked me a question about the fact that I'm on the cheer team at USC, and was like, how is that related to engineering or something like that? And it was kind of fun and quirky, but yeah, it's definitely a good question to ask. I would recommend it too.
Yeah, I also forgot that I like have Chipotle on my resume. Like I used to work there for 2 years in high school. So everyone always asks me about like, how big of a burrito can you roll? Like, what is your worst experience with a customer? And I'm like,
what's the wok recipe?
What's the guac recipe? Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, honestly, maybe you should make the guac for the ship and salsa event,
Ship
Make
and
some
salsa.
Yep.
That's pretty great. I guess what are some other, so I feel like a lot of the people who are going to be listening to this podcast within, the next couple years, they're probably going to be thinking about engineering internships themselves or interviews. What are maybe some other pieces of advice that you would give your younger self, like right before your very first interview?
I think for that, Natalie mentioned it a little bit last answer, and it's get yourself out there as soon as possible, because it is, to be completely honest with you, it is hard to get an internship your freshman year. It depends on how much experience you have coming into university and how prepared you are, and people do get them. But personally, I didn't. I went to every single networking event. I talked to every single recruiter, and I didn't get anything, right? But that I didn't get discouraged by it. I went to 2 or 3 engineering conferences that year, walked through the whole career fair, did the whole thing, didn't get anything. I think I got 1 interview and that was it. But I think just getting myself out there really helped in preparing myself for my sophomore year, because by that point I had already taken a whole year of engineering classes, and I had already built the basics of everything, which is just basic algorithms, how to write code and how to think about problem solving skills. And from that, I was able to see the same recruiters that had shown up, because as we mentioned, the same USC people keep coming to see us. So if they see you, they can actually see how much you progress, from having nothing on your resume to having a very sloppy resume and interview skills, to actually growing as an individual and showing them that you want to work for them and are consistent. That really helped me out. And it really opened doors for me my sophomore year. It was very insightful. And someone told a couple of us freshman year, and I was one of the few people that took in that advice to heart. And I'm very happy that I did, because it has helped me to be where I am right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I noticed too that, like, at least for my industry, there's not a lot of technical questions that you're going to be asked during an interview. But I've noticed that like interview styles have changed to more behavioral ones. So they kind of give you like a scenario where it's like, have you been in a situation where you needed to like, you were in a conflict and you had to resolve it, and what were your steps in doing that? So I would say like for a lot of these interviews, go in just kind of knowing yourself and knowing what you've been through. And like don't try to over practice these, because like these, it's really just about your behavior and how you react to things. And like if you have this like perfectly staged kind of rehearsed answer, I feel like it doesn't come off as impactful or as passionate as something like you genuinely have been through things, like you know your life, you know the things you have been through. So this isn't something that you should be nervous about, because you're really just speaking on yourself and like who knows you better than you, right? So I would say that is like kind of my advice, is just like know the things you've been through and know that you've made it this far and you've had challenges and you've had successes, and like be able to speak on those.
Yeah. I would also say, like, if you have the time before the interview, definitely look into the company you're interviewing for and find out something that you're really passionate about or that you're maybe really interested in, and maybe try and bring it up into the interview or ask about it at the very end. Because something about the company that I just worked for this past summer, they have this thing that's called flexport.org, where they work with kind of green initiatives. So they do offset of carbon emissions, and just they do humanitarian aid and volunteering and things like that. When the COVID-19 outbreak was really severe and a lot of places around the world were lacking in PPE, people in the company got together and made sure that that delivered to those countries that really needed it. So in my interview, I actually brought up the carbon emission calculator, and I was really interested about it. And they said, wow, you actually have done your homework. Like, you know about this part of the company. So I feel like that can also be very impactful when you're interviewing.
Yeah, one final thing that I would like to add is you're always going to be nervous. If you're not nervous, there's something weird, like maybe you don't really want to work for that company. I don't know. But like it's something that happens and you just have to grow into it. And one of the things is I myself, whenever there's a career fair, I get really nervous and like going to talk to a company, getting in line, even though I already did my research and things. And an upperclassman told me my freshman year that really stayed with me was walk through the career fair one time or two times and list the number of companies that you're interested in, or do your research beforehand, because they also show the list. Make a list of that. And before you go up to them, the ones that you're really interested in, the ones that you really want to work for, go to other companies that may not sound so interested, or you maybe have never heard of. And that way you can get over how nervous you are and that first impression early on. And if you mess up with those companies, it's okay, because that's not the company that you wanted to work for. But if you really hit it off with them, that's probably maybe a company that you actually are interested in the future, and you can learn more from them. So that's pretty a great advice that I have taken to heart, and I have been doing for the past 2 years, and it has really helped me.
That's amazing. I guess this is kind of very similar to the last question I asked, but I guess just to kind of wrap up this podcast and this interview, what I guess are some final pieces of just kind of general advice you would give to students even searching for internships, or just kind of any final parting thoughts?
Yeah, I would honestly just say, like, don't be afraid to flop, just because you're gonna flop a lot. You're not gonna get every position you apply for. You're gonna do bad in a couple of interviews, and that's just like inevitable. You're gonna have your failures, but that's what you fine tune. You learn from that one interview. You're like, dang, I really messed that up. Like when they asked me the question about this, I had no answer, but now if you are ever asked that question again, you have an answer. So it's just kind of like, don't run away from like the fear of failure, which sounds like super cheesy and cliche, but like start early and start failing very early on, because you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes. So yeah, just put yourself out there.
Yeah, I know we have talked a lot about the Trojan family and about different stories that we have, but it's not only about you going to talk to a company and a Trojan already being there, or you working for a company and meeting a Trojan there and making a connection. You can actually find a lot of these people on LinkedIn or from upperclassmen. They know people that had just graduated a couple of years before from the company that you're interested in. And I'm 100% sure that if you send them an email, if you try to contact them, these people will set up 15, 20, 30 minutes of their time to talk with you about whatever you want. It could be interview advice. It can be about their life. It can be about what they're working on. And it's a great asset that we have as people. And all we need to do is ask. And that's something we usually don't do. We don't like asking for help. We don't like reaching out. And it's something that I've had to work with a lot in the past. but it's a great asset that we have. And I think it's amazing the amount of resources USC provides and other amazing universities as well. So take advantage of that. Other people want to help you. They want to see you succeed almost as much as you want to see yourself succeed. So that's pretty great.
They really do. And then kind of like the last thing I want to say is, if you don't get an internship after your freshman year, after your sophomore year, that's totally normal. There's nothing wrong with that. And everyone is going to be at different timelines and also figuring things out. Like if you get an internship and you realize, wow, this is not what I want to do at all. That happened for me personally. After my first internship, I was like, wow, this is actually what I want to do. And it made me change my entire major. But it's kind of just, I feel like it's always helpful to hear that reminder, like everyone is going to be at different speeds. Everyone's going to be at different places. And all of us are going to look different. So don't be discouraged if, one of your friends is getting a lot of offers or something like that. And maybe you're not at first. That doesn't mean you're not going to get one later down the line. But I think with that, I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your afternoon to come chat with me about this. So thank you both.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good luck, everyone.
Awesome. And we're back. Thank you so much, Alex. I really enjoyed listening to that episode. And I was just wondering, for internships, like obviously your internship was like online and in person. Were there any like perks you found to being online versus in the office?
Yeah, I feel like I just got to meet so many people in the company that I would not have met if it was totally in person. I was working with teams in San Francisco and teams in Chicago, and it was much easier to work with them in kind of that virtual environment than I feel like if I had been working strictly in person, because those days I was in person, I was really only interacting with our LA team.
Awesome.
You've had other internships, correct, Alex? Or was this the only one?
Yes, I had an internship after my freshman year in a totally different field. I worked in mobile app development.
When you were kind of going into college and starting to think about internships, what was probably the scariest part? And now where you are now, looking back on it, what advice would you give to yourself about how you did things, or what did you worry about that you didn't need to worry about?
I think the scariest part of it for me was honestly trying to figure out where I wanted to intern, because I feel like my education has set me up to go down so many different pathways. And I feel like that was the scariest part, trying to be like, hey, maybe I'm going to choose this and hate it. But then I realized, anything can be a learning experience. I've been really fortunate that I've loved my internships, and they've actually really kind of helped direct my career choices. And I've been really lucky in that fact. And so I think I would definitely tell myself to just kind of go for it, and keep an open mind and just be really willing to try anything.
What's one thing that you take away from your internships that maybe something you haven't learned anywhere else?
I think honestly, my internship really taught me the true importance of utilizing my network. I think it was something I knew, but it wasn't something I had the opportunity to really practice until I got to this company. And I just kind of got to network all throughout the company with a lot of USC alum too, which was really exciting. I know I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but my company did an email blast introducing all the interns. And when people saw that I was from USC, I had a bunch of USC alumni actually reach out and connect.
So cool,
and
right?
so my manager's manager actually graduated from the ISE department at USC.
Oh, wow.
And then there was another person in the company who also graduated from the ISE department. And so that was really cool, getting to talk to them and learn about, their experiences at USC, however many years ago. One of them even had similar professors, or the same professors that I'm currently taking.
Cool.
So that was really fun.
It all becomes a very small world at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. And I'm certain that being 2 times captain of the USC Spirit Leaders doesn't hurt any.
Yeah, it's exciting. They're hopefully going to actually come to some football games, as they'll be back for homecoming. So hopefully I'll get to reconnect with them in that capacity.
The alums at your company, so they get to see on the field. We're calling back to a joke that we had before we started recording, everybody, but basically not a joke, but Alex is captain of the spirit leader team. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, we're the spirit leaders. Yes.
Captain of the spirit leaders at USC. And so earlier this week, she was highlighted on the USC Viterbi Instagram. So Alex is kind of a little mini celebrity this week. Big time around campus. So I had to call her out on it on the podcast.
So funny.
A VIP on the podcast this week.
Yeah, we
Thanks,
have a
guys.
celebrity in our midst, Emily. Like, I don't even know what to do. I've just been like,
Wow.
I don't even know what to ask.
What a huge ego boost. Honestly, I had no idea that it was coming out this week. This was something we've been talking about doing for months and months. Paul, they said that they found out about me through you. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
You're the reason that this happened.
I talk about you all very loudly. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you. And I'm making light of it, but it is a really, really big deal. And congratulations. I mean, I know there's a lot of work that goes into being captain of the spirit leaders, in addition to all the other work that you do. And so if you're at a USC football game coming up, or if you're watching on TV, you'll probably see Alex throwing up the fight on and leading some spirited chants and yells and songs.
Yep. First one's this Saturday. Can't wait.
That's right. Beat the Spartans. Okay. Anything else, ladies, we want to talk about? Anything else we need to update everybody on?
I think that's about it. I think you guys covered it.
Yeah, that's it for me.
All right. Alex, thank you so much for bringing this episode. And for all of our listeners out there, we'll see you again real soon, because we've got a lot of episodes in our bank that are ready to get out. So we'll see you soon.